I'm Tania, I'm a detached youth worker in Hackney for a small charity, and I'm afraid I haven't learnt to speak without notes yet. So, right. More than ever before, we youth workers are being pushed into roles of policing and surveillance. There have always been those in government and in power who want us to monitor young people and control their behaviour, and I think in recent years it's got much harder to avoid being involved in this. So, I'll give an example. Many of you know about Operation Stay Safe. This involves the police walking around certain areas at night, usually Friday nights, Saturday nights, looking for young people on the streets and taking them home. Maybe we should be working with young people to question this and challenge this, but unfortunately what youth workers are more often doing are actively being involved in Stay Safe in different ways in different areas. So, in some areas the detached youth workers walk around ahead of the police and they tell the young people that they should move on to avoid getting in trouble. In other areas, workers have been asked to open their youth clubs almost as temporary holding cells for young people whose parents can't be contacted. And in some places, youth workers actually walk around with the police to help them meet and be able to talk to the young people. Some youth workers have said no to all of this, but many have been persuaded, pressurised, even threatened with losing their jobs. And in some areas, agency staff are used for this. In other areas, workers are offered double pay. There are so many things wrong with our involvement in this kind of project, but I'll mention just 3 of them. Number 1, it's not youth work. Rather than starting from where the young people are at, the workers arrive, of course, with a set agenda, a closed agenda, which makes many assumptions about safety, risk, and young people's rights to be on the street. Far from empowering young people to take and use public space in a positive way, the youth workers are actually operating as soft cops. They're shutting down their options and telling them to conform. Number 2, it's bad for other youth work in the area. These workers communicate regularly with the police in these projects, even if they don't walk around together at night. So the young people see them together and associate youth workers with police, or else there is outright deception. For example, in an area near to where I work, the youth workers and the police actually arrange to meet every night in the middle of the session down a back alley. You can imagine that youth workers are increasingly known as police informants, and that's certainly happened in the area that I work in. And number 3, it's not safe. Rather than, as detached youth workers always have, choosing whether to talk to a group of young people on the basis of a long-term involvement in that area, and also by looking at young people's body language, that kind of thing, the pressure is there for the youth workers to approach every group, and this has implications for the safety of those workers and the young people. So Operation Stay Safe is an example of youth workers acting directly as part of policing. And there are even more examples of our involvement with indirect policing. In particular, nearly every one of us in this room will be involved in the surveillance of young people, recording their attendance on huge databases like YouthBase or Electronic Youth Services or whatever you call it in your area, adding information to their computerised files such as on contact point, common assessment frameworks, talking about young people at case panels increasingly without their consent or involvement, more and more being told to report their drug use, to report their sexual habits, to report the things they tell us about their families, to report who their friends are, especially if they live in areas where there are so-called gangs operating, and, especially in the case of young Muslims, to report their political views, their religious beliefs. And in turn, we workers are also under surveillance, often through the same mechanisms. And so when we use these systems and databases, it's unclear if they're there to spy on the young people or on us or both. When I first became involved in youth work, we'd never let the police in a youth club without a warrant. We would never grass or snitch on a young person. And now the police are often made welcome. And anyway, we're policing the young people ourselves. Today, many of our youth clubs are set up with full camera surveillance, knife archers at the doors, barcode scanners for young people's electronic membership cards. What is normal in youth work has moved so far in the direction of control and surveillance that we rarely get to debate wider and deeper issues, maybe such as whether policing is even a good thing, and there'll be a lot of differences of opinion in this room. But I hope we can all agree that a youth worker's role is completely different from a police officer's role, because our purpose is to work with young people on issues they are interested in, at times and places of their choice, starting from where they are at and offering them our skills, our commitment, our time, our energy to take if they choose. Thank you.